Anybody who's in your circle of acquaintances, including your servants and drivers, etc., who does not have a mobile phone? It's impossible to find that. Of course, I know one professor in Newpa who doesn't have a mobile phone. So professors can be obstinate, and it is impossible to deal with him because he says, I don't carry a mobile phone. So you catch me on the landline whenever you can catch me, but I just don't keep a mobile phone. But barring that exception, almost all the 100 million people of this country have mobile phones. Now, the difference between a mobile phone and a computer is getting less and less. So therefore, you have a computing device. And in traditional institutions, we ban mobile phones. We say no mobile phones, etc., etc. But we give a computer lab. It's quite interesting. He has computing power in his hand, which we ban. And then we say we'll provide you a computer lab, which will have much less computing power available to him. So suddenly you will find that in a few months or years, there will be absolutely no question, because it makes much more sense to allow them to carry their tablets and then have no computer lab at all, because you don't need it. Computer power performance is increasing. You get huge kind of power that is coming up in this field. So I'm sure some of you are from this thing, you know Moore's law, that the number of chips on an area doubles every so many years. Volume of storage and computing devices are decreasing. Electrical power requirements are decreasing. See, when you had one of those earlier computers, you almost had to have a dedicated substation to give it power. And in the air conditioning room, because I've done work like that, you actually had to build a stage and cool the thing from below. So the huge big computers of yesteryears had to be cooled from below, because cooling from top was not adequate. So the duct went right into the bottom of the computer, and that kind of thing was done. Today, you absolutely know. Bandwidth is becoming more and more accessible, and emergence of wireless connectivity is happening. So you're now coming to a situation which is very, very interesting, and there has been nothing like it before. We had a huge economic advantage when let's say the rail system came in, and the British used that to govern and economically exploit the country. The road system gives a lot of advantage. The connectivity, as in earlier networks, gave a lot of this thing, but Wi-Fi connectivity and computing power everywhere completely changes the story. It completely changes the story, because what you'll see in the future is that every device will have computing power. So the computer as a distinct entity will disappear. Computing power will be a concept which will be there everywhere, which means that information can be stored, information can be distributed, information can be processed. So everything will become what we quote unquote say an intelligent device. And those of you who are in the detail do know that now we say IP version 4 will be sort of used up, and IP version 6 will come, so that everything will have an IP address. The pen you're carrying, the clothes you're wearing, the books you're using, the furniture you're sitting on, the gadgets you have at your room, everything could actually have an address of that kind, and they will all be wirelessly connected. So computers in the past were big box mainframes, mini computers, desktop with CRTs, desktop with flat screens, laptops, notebooks, netbooks, tablets and pads. Some future trends, same kind of a thing. This is again, you can call it a mobile phone or a computer, your choice. So future PCs could look like this. So you've seen that, and I showed you that because now you will not find this so difficult to believe. If I kind of said in future the computer will look like this, you would have had some reservations. But now that you've seen this, you can see that this is, because what is happening is you have foldable screens which are possible. You have already seen some advertisements of Coolpix cameras where it says you can project from the camera. You've seen some of those ads that you take a picture, you can project it. So now that's the kind of thing we are talking about in terms of future PCs. You've seen the kind of USB drives we use, so you can put all memory inside that. And all these tablets, mobile phones, etc., all have flash solid state memory. And therefore, this will have something like that. So this will what your desktop will look like. So you will sit with a couple of things. You may have separate computers for different purposes, one for graphics, one for gaming, one for physics, one for chemistry, whatever kind of things you like. This is how this thing looks like. So if you're like a keyboard, you can have that thing project and you have something like a keyboard at your hand. This looks, and then this is the kind of projector. So now the kind of cameras you're talking about, that same projection thing can be put in over here, so you project something over there. This is a very neat one where you get your keyboard layout, etc. over here, and you can this thing. So now you can see that if you look at the smartphone that you have today, if you add two powers there, that one you can make a keyboard like this from it, and one you can project to a screen like this, then this will become the device of everything. So, and then of course it will make no sense to ban it, tell everybody to bring it to class and they can start using it. Now, you can actually go further. You can have wearable computers. So next time you decide, and with some designer like person, they'll design something, so you no longer talk about a CPU and power. You say the kind of dress I'm wearing, does my computer match my dress for today, and so on and so forth. And of course boys probably won't wear this, so they can have it like a watch. So you've seen this kind of thing, blood pressure measuring machine. So it will become something like that. You put it on the wrist and you can do that. So what the key message that one is saying is that computers are going to be everywhere, computing power is going to be everywhere, display, keyboard, input, output, these are additional things which can be worked. So the printout is also a display device, a large projector is a display device, small screen is a display device, that's all there is to it. I also want to share with you a very interesting thing, that when you see all these mobile phones, they say with great pride that we have a QWERTY keyboard over there. So that's a full keyboard. The other keyboard that people use is where you have multiple pressings of the same key to have that. And if you have had some feel for what iPad etc. is, then a keyboard is created in the way it is. But all such keyboards have a very awkward layout called the QWERTY layout. Q, W, E, R, T, Y, U, I, O, P, A, S, D, F, G, H, J, K, L, Z, X, C, V, B, and M. Why do you think they have a QWERTY layout? Some guesses, something? Some guess why should they have a QWERTY layout? They can simply say A, B, C, D, E, F, G like they have in your mobile phone, or like in a dictionary. In a dictionary you first have A, B, C, D, then A, then A, B, etc. So why not a dictionary layout? Why not this? Yes, somebody. Yeah, but why? Yes. Okay. Okay. See, so I think it's good. I'm doing this just so that there is some interactivity and you don't fall into a midday nap. See, the point is that as she was trying to say, the computer keyboard has the same layout. The computer keyboard has the same layout because when the IBM first introduced its computers, as I said, so when the IBM first introduced its computers, the people who programmed were different and the people who entered data were different. They were called key punch operators. The machine was IBM 029. In order to save the training costs, retraining costs of these people, they said for the key punch operator, it makes no difference whether it's a typewriter keyboard or a computer keyboard, and therefore they will be able to type with the same speed. So that is agreed. So the transition happened. Now how many today first learn typing before they learn computer? Answer is 0, right? So that is no longer. So that is one thing I wanted to share with you, that is just inertia, that people keep copying something about which the purpose etc. is anyway lost. But more important, why was the QWERTY layout created? Now as the ladies here are trying to say that they think that some very scientific study was done as to how which keys are used, and those of you who are interested in Sherlock Holmes had a story in which actually the whole thing was detected because the letter E of the typewriter was defective, and frequency analysis shows that the letter E is the one which is most often used in any of these things. So you have frequency distributions. These things are also used by military for cryptography and coding, encoding, decoding, whatever. So the principle that you would think would have been applied is that the QWERTY layout has been made so that people could type faster. Is there general agreement? Now, I'm sure you sense a catch there, because just like I said, multiplication is repeated addition, there must be something wrong with this. Well, there is something wrong. Because the typewriter was created about, again, 100 years old, 1890 or what, 18 something, by Remington and Rand and so on. Have any of you seen a real typewriter? Okay? And have you ever put your keys hands on? Now, if you put your keys at random, what happens? It jams, right? So if you put your keys, if you put strokes too fast, the typewriter will jam because all the keys will come there. What is the principle? It was a mechanical device, and unless the roller moved from the previous stage to the next stage, if your lever came before that, it would jam. Therefore, the QWERTY layout was made so that you cannot type so fast as to jam the typewriter. So it was actually designed to make you go slow, because and then typing speed test was like an obstacle race. In school you do an obstacle race, you tie your feet and then say ask to run. So first you designed it so that you can't type too fast, and then you had a typing contest, and still you would go to 40 words per minute, 80, 60, etc. It's no longer relevant when you have people who were not typists and you are having data which is being put electronically. And some of you who must have seen now in these iPads, a new technology has come up. Even in Samsung, I think it is called Swipe, where it actually says you don't have to even press the keyboard, you just go through that. But getting away from the QWERTY keyboard does not happen. They could have simply kept A, B, C, etc. So all that I want to say is that even when technology moves quite a bit, some of the old things may continue to remain. Anyway, so what are the factors which are influencing the future learning environments? First is the convergence in ICT. Now this is again a very, very important aspect that we must remember, that again I don't recall any other activity in history where this kind of a thing has happened, that the convergence of a number of things which were till recently separate. And let me quickly go through this, because even while computers were getting on, 1970, 1980, etc., 1980 a landline was still a very precious thing. So in Delhi you had to really know some MP or something before you could get your connection, because at the most you can get an OB number, but to get from that OB number to a real line was a big challenge. So we were still analog in terms of telephone communication, we were analog in terms of radio communication, we were analog in terms of television communication. Computers had become digital. When computers had become digital, it was possible for you to say that all numbers are expressed in binary form, all letters of the alphabets are expressed in binary forms, and therefore you had computers on one hand and you had the radio, television, telephone, and they had nothing to do with each other. As computing power progressed, both storage and processing, people realized that they could actually even get images and pictures into small units called pixels, and each pixel could be digitalized and that could move on. In the earlier years, this was called something called radio photo. Some of us who are old enough know in newspaper, some very special picture will come as a radio photo. So anyway, once they thought that this could be done, then text, images, and video is a moving image, and audio which gets transformed by Fourier series, all this could become digital and you had a convergence. And now when you look at any of these devices, it is a video, it is a radio, it is an audio, it is a text, it is an image, it can do painting, it can do all kinds of things, and it can also communicate. This is what has added to the huge power of this, because even till computers were not connected to each other, it was a different issue, because I could have everything, I will have to have the whole database, I have to have this thing, then. But today, because of connections, this is again a very interesting historical story and worth sharing, because it is unprecedented in history of human endeavor. If I ask you the question, who owns the internet? What would be the answer? And there's not much of a trick in it. Who owns the internet? No one, right? Very good. Do you know of anything in the world which is so valuable and nobody owns it? So it's something which is very unique. It's very interesting because everything else is owned by somebody or the other. I could go into that distraction also. Every piece of land is owned either by government or private agency or an agency or whatever. There is no piece of land which you can say is not owned by anybody. But how comes the internet is not owned by anybody? And as I said, I can't think of any other example of something which is valuable. See, something which is valueless is a different issue. See, what happened is that US had a huge lead in computing, because you can see all these computers are from the US side. The only Russian computers were a few computers which are copies of the IBM 370, but Russia was very lacking in computer field. US already had large computers, the IBM 370 and the DEC kinds. They also had dedicated networks between banks and governments and so on, well into the 70s and so on. The problem that was worrying them was that they had this huge fight with Russia, huge competition, and what they were worried is if the Russians bomb any of our computer installations, then those networks would collapse and the whole thing will come to a halt. It's like a highway being blocked by the people who go on agitation. So they gave some projects to professors in universities to find out alternative ways of communication should these be blocked. So these professors did some research, and as we said, some of this thing had progressed, and they came up with what is called the technical term, the TCP/IP protocol, which is the technical name for the internet. So this was developed as part of research grants given by the defense, DARPA and other agencies. But then what happens in academics is people who study in one institute go to another institute. I'm sure you have faculty here who would have been working somewhere else, and I'm sure you have faculty here who will go somewhere else. In academics this happens very often, and especially in US good universities, they had a system where if you did PhD in a certain university, you would actually go and get a job somewhere else. They did not take their own thing. Inbreeding was not encouraged. So what would happen, these PhD people, they did this work, they know how to set up connections, so they go to another university. There they collect their budget. I can connect my computer to those computers, and without going through this. So they started doing this. And you know how professors are, they love to tell stories, they love to tell others what they can do. In 6 months' time, everybody knew how to do this. So defense people realized now this is no secret. If every kid in every university knows how to connect computers, you might as well forget about it. So it is like in intellectual property, if you have not maintained the confidentiality of something, you cannot keep it as confidential. So defense said, fine, now if everybody knows about it, let everybody know about it. And that's how they... Yes.
The DARPA agency started in 1964.
Yes.
30 years back.
Yeah.
As compared to that evolution in 1995.
Yeah.
So professors of the people of US, they believed it for 30 years just to make it open.
No. See, these things take time. You see what happens when what I am doing it, I am telling the story in 3 minutes. But basically when people move, they do 5 years to do a PhD, then they go, then somebody goes. It's not that they were rushing with a Aam Sabha to tell everybody about it. All that I am trying to say is that over a period of time, this thing became open information. And therefore, the Department of Defense felt there is no point in trying to control it. It is just like we are not talking about open educational resources, that MIT has put the content on top of this thing. So therefore, so that's all that I am trying to say, that in terms of, and this is an extremely unique example where at least no other thing we know is that. And today we are very, very conscious, and in fact that is why, because the internet got in this way, then this technologies have spawned a large number of people who are open and sharing. So the example of the Wikipedia, for example, is again one of this kind. Whereas everybody else wanted to be an author, protect intellectual property, copyright, violate others, Wikipedia people are willing to contribute, let it be shared. And then came something called Creative Commons license, where people said we are very happy to share things to be able to move. So it is important to understand that the internet also is an interesting example of how humans are willing to cooperate in some sense without always talking about private ownership. And this is a very, very fundamental and interesting point as well, because much of the intellectual property fight is about trying to say that unless people have full ownership, they will not progress, they will not do things, and so on and so forth. So that's the thing.
Sir, how do you ensure the authenticity of the internet information?
You can't. See, the point...
Use of that, sir?
No, see, there is...
It can be misleading.
See, it's true of any information. Whenever you even read a newspaper, the newspaper prints something. Is it correct or not? You wouldn't know. And even the correctness or otherwise of something may be known over a long period of time. So everything that whenever you talk about something called publishing, anybody who has the means to publish,
To say, how can this internet be useful in education?
see, because let me again explain. So no. See, two things. To say that all information on the internet is not authentic does not mean that large parts of information are not authentic. So large parts of information on the internet are authentic, but because there is no control, therefore if you just randomly pick up something, it may not be authentic. Yes, you want to say something?
Information given in the internet that may not be directly suitable for the students.
See, again, that's another issue. There are two different issues. When we say, let's take printed books. Printed books exist in large numbers, right? There are a whole variety of them. Now, as teachers, you guide students that this textbook is useful for you. So the role of the teacher is a very important question. The role of the teacher in an age of information is what is called the role of a curator. So you actually guide the students in terms of what information is there. Nobody is saying that everything that is directly available or information you consume as it is. Just like you don't consume every piece that is available as food. Anything which looks very nice may actually be poison. So you decide that certain things are used. So if you're talking about guided teaching, so we are nowhere saying using internet for teaching means that you are picking any piece of information and so on. So at least I think this itself is one part of teaching, that anything just because it's on the internet is not correct, just like because something is on the printed form is not correct. Something is a computer printout. When we were young, anything which came out of computer dot matrix output was, oh, this is computer printout, so it must be correct. It could be wrong. Then laser printout was seen as better than dot matrix printout. So the point is that validity of the information and also information for the purpose. I just met somebody in the audience to whom I at some point of time talked about that validity of information also changes. All information is circumscribed by the context, the way it is. Even language, if you look at a word can have different meanings depending upon the context. So you can have the same word having different meanings in terms of this thing. So, for example, the word fast can mean that it is Navaratri and I am not eating. It can also mean I am running very fast. Okay, if it's a color, it means this color will not bleed or will not fade away. Right? If it is a person who swindles you, say he's a very fast person, be cautious of him. So, all things have certain context and meaning. So, forget internet, everything else has to be in the same way. Right? You're itching to say something more. If there's some immediate reaction, I'm happy to take. If it is long term, we will talk it over.
So what I mean to say is
Yeah.
internet can basically be disastrous for teaching.
No, see.
Unless and until somebody tells you this is the correct
Great,
information.
fine. So therefore, it's not disastrous. See, if I tell you, and I'll show you towards the end, MIT has a large number of lectures on the internet, which is official MIT talks. So it's not disastrous. So therefore, what one is saying is, because internet is freedom of expression, I can post anything. Let me spend a couple of minutes talking on another issue. See, let's take Wikipedia for example. Wikipedia is a very interesting concept. Wikipedia is something where you can post anything, right? You're all aware of it. And therefore, your question could be quite validly asked for Wikipedia. So if Wikipedia has something, can I trust it or can I not trust it? Your natural reaction will be you can't trust it, right? Because there is no editor, no author, no this thing. Fact of the matter is the Supreme Court of India has quoted it. And judges go very strongly by the Indian Evidence Act, because Indian Evidence Act says clearly what can be as evidence, cannot be evidence. Hearsay evidence is not acceptable. Evidence has to be of the person. So it is very interesting that Wikipedia has now been used by Supreme Court judges to do this. So that is one part. Of course, for WikiLeaks, they are not as excited about it. But let me now share with you why Wikipedia has got the reputation that it has. See, it is a public platform. Anybody can write anything on it. Now the point is, because anybody can write and anybody can comment, it has a corrective feature. So let us say I write something about it, about some obscure place in Uttarakhand. In that place there is a temple where there is something. Now if nobody else in the world cares about it, it doesn't matter whether it is right or wrong. Okay? Or cares about it means cares about it through Wikipedia. So it doesn't matter if nobody else so nobody will be misled because nobody cares. But if anybody cares about it and knows about it, to care about it, he will make a correction that what you said is not right. And here is the picture of that thing. So by averaging topics on which lots of people are interested, lots of corrections will happen. Now, you may not realize, but this is the method of science. See, today we look at the scientific method as the method closest to truth. What is the scientific method? You are in a certain field, you do something, you publish it in a research journal. Practically publishing in a research journal only means that you have to go through the referee, and the referee is not all knowledgeable, he broadly sees whether it is reasonable. The moment you write something wrong, everybody else will come to criticize. And in the world of science, even if you are a Nobel laureate and you write something, a graduate student can criticize. I know of examples where certain theories were done by very established people and a young graduate student said, but this is wrong with the theory. Now, whatever stands the scrutiny of time becomes acceptable scientific knowledge. And that is the one which we rely upon as most, because there is a kind of a democracy in which people have made opinion. But it's a democracy of knowledgeable people. So similarly,